All right, let's dive into a pretty dark chapter of the Industrial Revolution. We're talking about a time when some companies didn't just own your work, they owned your entire life.
Social Darwinism.
I mean, really let that sink in for a second. Imagine that. This isn't some plot from a dystopian movie. No. For thousands of people, this was their grim, everyday reality.
See, in the late 1800s, corporate power was just exploding. It was all built on this brutal idea of social Darwinism, where workers were basically seen as disposable cogs in a machine. So the big industrial leaders thought, hey, why just manage employees? They decided to take their power to a whole new level by literally engineering entire societies just for profit.
And this ambition led them to create something truly chilling, the company town.
So, what exactly was a company town? Well, the concept was devastatingly simple. A corporation builds a whole town out in the middle of nowhere, centered around its factory or its mine. By doing this, they completely isolate their entire workforce, and that gives them total, inescapable control.
And when I say they owned everything, I mean everything. The roof over your head, the only store where you could buy food, the school your kids went to, even the church you prayed in on Sunday. All of it. There was no private space, no escape. It was a perfectly closed loop.
But you might be wondering, okay, but how did they actually lock people in? Well, owning the town was one thing, but the real, twisted genius of this system, the key to the whole trap, was how they controlled the money.
And this is where the story goes from just oppressive to something truly insidious. Because all that backbreaking labor, it wasn't rewarded with US dollars. Nope, workers were paid in something else entirely.
So check this out. On one side, you've got a US dollar. It represents freedom, right? You can spend it anywhere you want. On the other side, you have company scrip. This was basically fake money, sometimes just little metal tokens or paper notes that was only good in one place, the company store. This wasn't money, it was a leash. And here's exactly how the trap worked. It was a vicious cycle. First, you'd work all week and get paid in this worthless scrip. Then, you'd have to buy all your family's food and supplies at the company store, the only place that would take it. And here's the kicker. The company could charge whatever prices they wanted, and they were always inflated. The result? Your wages were never enough. You were always in debt to the very people you worked for. You see, this whole system created such a grim reality. Sure, it was called a town, and people had jobs, but any idea of real freedom, that was a complete and total illusion.
I mean, this really says it all. There was no way out. If you complained, tried to organize, or even just quit, the consequences were catastrophic and immediate. You'd be homeless, penniless, and unable to feed your family, literally overnight, all by the decree of your boss. This is what they became, a wage slave. They were trapped by a debt that was completely manufactured, living under constant surveillance, with absolutely no way to leave or make their lives better. The company didn't just own their labor, it owned them. And when you strip it all away, you get to the ugly truth. In this system, human beings weren't seen as citizens or even as employees. They were seen as something else entirely. Profitable livestock, just assets to be managed and squeezed for every last ounce of value, with no regard at all for their humanity. Now, this system was eventually outlawed, thank goodness, but that underlying mindset, that desire for total control for the sake of profit, that's a powerful idea. And it really makes you wonder, right? In our modern world of gig economies, sprawling tech campuses, and digital platforms, in what new forms does the company town still exist today?